Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, where are we in our text, Aditi?
We are in the middle of chapter 3, section 1. We're on Sutra 36.
All right, will you help us out?
Yeah. Avyavritta bhajanat. Also through continuous, tender, and loving service of the Lord.
So here the idea, these are practices, ways to engender prema, love. And here it's the practice of loving service. Very interesting. Someone once asked Swamiji what yoga's solution was to mental illness. Mind you, this is going back into days before psych meds, antidepressants, anxiety meds, or anything like that. And he said the prescription in yoga is intense devotional practices and selfless service. And there's a very good scientific, technological answer for this, especially the second part, selfless service. The most painful position of the mind is paranoid self-obsession. It's the vulture that sits on our shoulder that says, how am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? where the mind is turned onto the ego sense, trying to defend, protect, justify, rationalize, and ward off anything in the environment that attacks it. And there are two places you can point the mind to get away from that. First, of course, is to God. Japa, chant the name of the Lord. Kirtan, sing the name of the Lord. The other place is on service. In AA, the old timers used to say, I don't care what your problem is, go work with another alcoholic. And then the newcomer would go, but you don't know about my problems. And they had intuitively come upon this great truth that when we are serving something greater than our own ego, this stuff starts to melt away. This stuff starts to melt away. What we need to do is abhyas, practice, and vairagya, detach from those regrets for the past, those triggers, those things that cause us to spin. Before class, we were talking about the Yoga Sutras. And that second one, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the stilling, Nirodha, the restraining of the mind, the chitta, the stuff of the mind, from forming vrittis. It's a fabulous word, usually translated as thoughts, but the nuance is deeper because it comes from the root vert, which means to turn. It's when I spin on stuff. The mind is not just flowing by, but it hits something and goes, mind. What do they think of me? Am I okay? Defend, protect, fight back, run, all that stuff. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
So what yoga says is, how do we get out of it? How do we get out of it? And here is a powerful tool. Almost doesn't matter what the problem is. Go serve God. Go serve something greater than your own ego. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Sutra 37. Loke api bhagavad guna shravana kirtanat. Again, by hearing and singing the glories of the Lord, even while engaged in the activities of the world.
Yes, yes. So let's talk a little bit about the technology of what happens in the mind. As we were saying again before class, reading a marvelous book. It's the Secret of the Yoga Sutras by Pandit Rajmani Tigunaya from the Himalayan Institute in Pennsylvania. Just excellent. I just finished the section on what, in his commentary, which is based on Vyasa, what he calls Vritti Sanskara Chakra. which is the wheel that gets spinning between the thought and the impression. So what is a sanskara? Sanskara is just an impression. They get into our heads through repetition. When they become deeply ingrained, we call it a vasana. And then it begins to have its own life. The sanskara creates more vrittis, more thoughts, which then create deeper impressions, which create more thoughts. It's a circle. And if it gets very deep, it becomes a vasana. And the Vedanta, we talk about Vedanta's power to totally cloud our perception of reality. And here, the antidote that Yoga Sutra says is abhyas and vairagya through practice and practicing letting go of that stuff. And we again need to look at the word tapas. Tapas basically means heat. It's usually translated as austerity. It doesn't mean lying on a bed of nails. It doesn't mean not eating for a week. It doesn't mean torturing the flesh. That's not at all what it means. It means the practice of moving the mind from one groove of thinking into another. I like to say we are not healed so much by what we turn from, but by what we turn to. So if you spend all morning and your abhyas, your practices, going over your miseries, this is not a moral issue. What will happen? Vritti, sanskara, chakra. If you think about it all morning, you're going to deepen the grooves. That's why it becomes so much harder to get out of it. What do? What's the answer? Abhyas, vairagya. Turn the mind. It's hard. Yeah. I would call it practice. Turn the mind. So here, Narada is giving us another great tool. We are not healed so much by what we turn from, but by what we turn to. Now, he uses the word kirtan here, which means to sing. I don't know if the ancients actually knew about this, but in modern times, we're very clear that speech and singing use a different part of the brain. Did you study this at all, Aditi, in your psychotherapy training?
A little bit, actually, even before psychotherapy, yeah. Neuroscience.
So, for example, it is a standard treatment for people who have speech impediments. People who are stutterers can sing without stuttering because it uses a different part of the brain. Frequently, we can read something, say from the Bible or from the yoga scriptures, And the words are one thing, but when it's in the form of song, it hits us in a different way. So for Susali, the old psalms that come from church when you were a kid, they're still stuck in there. You know, you could remember the songs because they use a different part of the brain. They not only involve the text, but they involve the emotions. Very deep. So here the practice is sing God's praises as you're functioning in the world. Now, you don't need to be obnoxious and bother your friends. But inside, you could be going, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom should I be afraid? Or Sri Krishna Govinda Gopala, Sri Krishna Govinda. Whatever are the songs that appeal to you. This is called kirtan. And people in spiritual life have understood the power of singing for centuries. Those of you who may have been raised in the Catholic Church, the first document that came out of the Second Vatican Council in the 60s, this is the highest authority of the church, is the church councils. It's called the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy. One of the things it says is a sung liturgy, sung by the people of God, not just passively listening to a Mozart mass, is declared as normative. That's the word they use. Because they understood that if the people sing the prayers, it hits them at a deeper place. Any thoughts on this? All right, next tool, next sutra.
That's the end of that chapter. Now we're on chapter 3, section 2. Aids to love divine. Magic of satsang. Attained is it by the grace of the masters, and a spark from him in main. Rare is the company of the great sages, inaccessible, but unfailing it is, to be gained by the Lord's grace alone, for between him and them no difference there is. That alone is attainable, that alone.
Next sutra.
Sutra 38. Mukhyatastu mahat kripayeva bhagvat kripal leshadva. Primarily it, pure devotion, is gained through the grace of great souls, or through a little of the divine grace.
Yes. So the word here is kripa, which means grace. Now, in one of my favorite scriptures, Tripura Rahasya, the first topic under discussion is what is the root cause of liberation. And the Tattva says, sadhu sangha, satsang. Association with the wise, with the company of here Mahatmas, great souls, or God's grace itself. So if we have the great merit, the great fortune to have personal contact with a woman or a man of realization, something very wonderful can happen. We call it in the scriptures Shakti. Shakti means power, energy. Padati means to fly or to fall. So when we go back in Viveka Chudamani to Shankara's qualifications of a fit teacher, Shrotriyam, well versed in the scriptures, a full knower of the supreme, meaning a guru should always be in that state, never varying, never doubts what their essential nature is. Then it says, who has retired into the supreme. So the Mahatma has this great gift. Just disappear. Inside, it's thunderously silent. And if we have Shraddha, faith, we can tune up to the Guru. Swamiji used to say, use the Guru. We can drop our minds, and then this divine energy flows. Shakti has its own intelligence. It knows what to do. It gets inside of us, does the work. In the Christian scriptures, there's a wonderful story about Jesus that I love. He and his disciples are walking along the road, and then a woman with an issue of blood, they say, meaning she had a hemorrhage, a vaginal hemorrhage, and it was constant, it wouldn't go away. So she comes up behind him and touches his robe. Doesn't even touch his body. He doesn't even know she's there. And he stops and says, who has touched me? For he felt power had gone out of him. Isn't that amazing? Mm. Wasn't anything he consciously or deliberately did. But it was her need, her openness, her yearning, and his emptiness that allowed the ruach, the breath, the wind of God to come through. Call this kripa, grace. And the Shakti is unfailing in her power. But our job then to do is to learn to just tune up and open. Secret here. It's not so much how powerful the Guru is. It's our yearning. How open are we? Which pulls the energy from God, ultimately. Any thoughts on this? Unerring. Unerring. It does the work in the end. We eat God. It changes us from the inside. Next one.
39. Mahat sangastu durlabho agamyo amoghascha. To come in contact with a great soul is indeed extremely difficult. It is impossible to know them fully, yet it is infallible in its effect.
Mahatma Sangha. Same thing as Satsanga. So when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And if the student is ready, a rock can enlighten them.
Mhm.
You and I, we think, oh, I have to find the right guru, and people run all over the world. No. When the student is ready, the guru appears. A temporary psychological device. Shankara thunders in Viveka Chudamani. Success in spiritual endeavors is entirely due to the degree of the qualifications of the fit student, adhikari. When he says other factors such as time and place, while important, are fundamentally secondary. I say even the guru. Dictionary definition of guru is heavy. He's a dude. But there are other etymologies. The one I like comes from one of the Upanishads. I can't remember which one right now. Gu, meaning that which is covered or hidden. So the guru is that which reveals what is covered or hidden, meaning our essential nature. Who your guru is karmic. You go to one Mahatma and no juice. Go to someone else and, oh, this is where I belong. And it can change over your sadhana. Trust, trust. It is our intention draws that to us. In Gita, even the Lord himself says, when people fall into ignorance and they suffer, it's their yearning that causes Lord Krishna to incarnate. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sutra 40. Labhyate api tat kripayeva. Nevertheless, by the grace of God alone, great souls are attained.
So, grace of God, but we invoke the grace of God through our own abhyas, our own practice. I heard a Buddhist friend of mine say, enlightenment comes by accident. Zen makes you accident prone. So our job is to become an empty vessel. So God's grace can pour into us. By great, great punya that we get a chance to meet a real teacher. Next one.
Sutra 41. Tasmin sajjane bheda bhavat. Because between God and his devotees, there is no sense of difference.
Yes. So you have this saying in the tradition, the Guru is God. Now listen very carefully. Some people misunderstand this. And they get involved with the personality of the teacher. I remember very vividly Swamiji saying, if you cannot see who I am, then treat me as a mouthpiece of the scriptures. Do not get caught up in my personality. You're there to do business. Get the knowledge. If that's your intention, then yes, there is no difference between the Guru and God. There's no difference between life and God. Guru is everything. Some of us foolishly think that, oh, I want the Guru to run my life. Tell me who to marry, what job to get, where I should live. Should I go hither or go yon? I used to have this idea, I had other friends and they had gurus who micromanaged their lives. And Swamiji never did that. And I was wondering, I'd ask him at the end of spending time with him, Swamiji, what do you want me to do? And he would say, I have no desire. And then I realized he was telling me what to do all the time. Discriminate between the real and the unreal. Renounce my attachment to the fruits of action. Attain a single-pointed mind. Disidentify with personal sense of self. Oh, he was telling me what to do all the time. Why should he be concerned about stupid personal problems? Next verse.
Tadeva sadhyatam, tadeva sadhyatam. That alone is to be accomplished. That alone be accomplished.
So, what is to be accomplished? If we have the great merit to meet a Mahatma, to learn to surrender to that Shunyata Prasad, that great gift of profound emptiness. Surrender, open to. Next verse.
That's the end of the section, chapter rather. Chapter 3, section 3, aids to love divine, danger of dusanga.
Danger of what?
Dusanga.
Oh, dusanga. Yes, bad company. Danger of lower companions.
Mm-hmm. To be shunned is all the bad company by every means, because it generates desire, anger and delusion, forgetfulness and loss of reason, leading to certain ruin. Indeed, by bad company, even an innocent ripple turns into a treacherous ocean. Sutra 43. Dosanga sarvasheva sarvateva tyajatyaha. Evil company is only fit to be renounced by all means.
Why are we focusing on this? We had satsanga, and now we have dusanga. Because environment is stronger than will. The recovery community, sometimes you'll hear the adage, if you hang out in a barber shop, you're going to eventually get a haircut. So we want to avoid circumstances and company that draw our minds again, not just into extroversion in the world. People who tell us that cash and prizes are what it's about, but people who have a negative view of the world, who are filled with fear. I'll give you an example. I was watching the news last week, and there was this one talking head who was saying one of the things that he thinks causes people who are vaccine deniers to be involved with those. And what happens is that people develop a community of conspiracy. They get online and they start talking with people who go down these rabbit holes. And then they reinforce each other. And they all get angry together. They all get fearful together. And this becomes community. And in order to break away from that mindset, you have to abandon the fellowship of the community. Mm. And I thought, that's really insightful. And if you have a strong community with a viewpoint, your tendency will be to believe all what other people believe. So environment is stronger than will. So not only seek the company of the great Mahatmas, but seek the company of fellow travelers on the path. Now, if we are in fit spiritual condition, we can go anywhere if we have a legitimate purpose. So, for example, if you have a friend who's having a birthday and everybody wants to go to the local bar and have drinks, and you care for your friend, you can go to the local bar, have yourself, a glass of Calistoga water or something like that. Spend time to celebrate your friend's birthday. But that's different, for example, than someone who wants to go to just say, oh, I want to contact high. Or curiosity. I wonder what an orgy is like. This is not a moral issue. But if you start down the road of the extroversion of the senses, don't be surprised where you end up. So what happens if, let's say, everybody at work gossips and tears down boss or other people or management? What do you do? This sutra is saying is politely extricate yourself. If you gossip about others, don't complain when they gossip about you. If you fill your mind with fear and resentment and anger, this is du-sangha. This is bad company, lower companion. So it's not just people. It's the bad company of those as well. So we need adult supervision up here. We need a higher power to turn our mind towards. So let's say you have a friend and your relationship is you be miserable together. You spend all your time venting about your problems. We kind of get a little sick pleasure about doing that. Do sangha. No. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and whom you lift up. Become the friend you seek. If you want positive, affirming, spiritual friends, you become that kind of a person. And I tell you, your friends will change. They themselves will become different people, or you'll get different friends. Any thoughts on Du Sangha? Next one.
Kama, Krodha, Moha, Smriti, Brahmasha, buddhinasha sarvanasha karanatvat. For it is the cause for creating lust, anger, delusion, loss of memory, loss of discrimination, and ultimately our utter ruin.
Yes. So if we look for agreement for our lower thoughts, here we have the road to destruction that Narada puts out for us. So let's look at this ladder of descent that we go down. Starts with kama. Here Swamiji's translated it as lust. Kama means craving. Want. And I always say, what does it feel like to want something you don't have? The more you want it, the further away it is. It sucks, it hurts. There is no other suffering than that. And then the number 2 is krodha, wasn't it?
Yes.
Krodha's anger. Here is yoga's definition of anger. Thwarted desire, unmet expectation. Why am I angry? I'm not getting what I want. People aren't behaving the way I think they should. Don't believe me. Look to your own direct experience. Kama, krodha. Was the next one moha?
Yeah.
What's moha? Delusion. When the mind gets agitated, I can no longer see what's really going on. My values get distorted. And I'm now in a world of mental projection. And what was it? I've lost the list. What comes after moha?
Smriti Bhramsha.
Loss of memory. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Loss of memory. So what happens then is I forget who I am.
Oh.
What?
Yes.
I forget who I am. I forget my values. I forget what's important. The fruit of delusion, moha, is loss of memory. Instead, I start obsessing. Trivial, stupid things. And what's next on the list?
Buddhinasha, loss of discrimination.
Yes. Buddhi, here meaning intelligence or discrimination. Nasha, to destroy. Then I lose the capacity to discern what's valuable, what's appropriate, what's healthy. Instead, I start going after things that are destructive. The addictive relationship with the world. My mind has become so disturbed, so restless, so discontent, and I want to start fixing that feeling. Let me eat at it. Let me drink at it. Let me drug at it. Let me just go to sleep. I know what the answer to all my problems are. Crystal meth. Or an entire chocolate cake. That'll fix it. Or I know what I need to do. Kill him. Lose discrimination. And the destruction of real intelligence. Untinasha. Next one.
Sarvanasha.
Total destruction. Then we lose all that's important and valuable in life. Yoga doesn't talk too much about going to hell. But what yoga does say is we're going to give you a way to get out of the hell that you've already created. Because you're in the state of sarvanasha, total destruction. Destruction everywhere. Now, how do I get out? So here Narada is saying this is the potentiality of dusangha, of association with lower companions. Now, many of us have what I call broken pickers. Oh, Jim, I just like the bad boys. They're so hot. Right? I'm attracted to the outlaws. No problem. But if they arrest you for robbing a bank, it's the spiritual Stockholm syndrome. We get captured by the fascination of the low life. Oh, healthy people are so boring. That's what our minds will say. Or what are we attracted to? I look for a person who's just effing miserable. Well, that's the person I want to be with. So we can commiserate about our misery together. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be helpful in the world. But being helpful is different than looking for fellow miserable people. I have a dear friend, and years ago when he was young, he was goth. All the black clothing and the blue hair and stuff like that. And he was talking to me about how all his friends would just spend all their time and almost like yearning for destruction and death. Let's cut ourselves, all this kind of stuff. People get together. The world's terrible. The world is terrible. The world is terrible. No. Kama, Krodha, Moha. What came after that? Delusion.
Yeah.
Loss of memory, delusion, destruction. So the antithesis to keeping holy company, to hanging out with healthy people. Sometimes you'll hear the slogan, stick with the winners. Stay in the middle of the herd with other people who are yogis. Doesn't have to have the same spiritual practice as you, but stick with people who have a positive, healthy view of the world. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Sutra 45. Tarangiyata apime as apime sangatsa mudrayanti. Oh. Though appearing as a ripple in the beginning, these, anger, lust, etc., by evil companionship can become like an ocean.
Yes. So I have a student / friend that I talk to, and what they say is, well, Jim, I just need to vent. And they look for someone with whom they can just vent all their problems. And especially if they have a friend who can say, oh, I get it. Let me share with you how terrible my life is. You can spend hours reviewing your misery. Some people think that's friendship. It's certainly a kind of connection. But Narada here is saying what may start off as just an annoyance in life. If you hang with people who validate your victimization, it started off as a ripple, can become a torrent of negativity. It's very hard to get out of it then at that point. Very hard to get out. Any thoughts on this?
What would you say is the difference between like a friendship where it's like all just downward negative venting, as you're calling it, and then a friendship or a relationship that's where each person shares their difficulties, but it's in a positive way. Like what, I don't know, can you point to some?
Well, what I would do is look at the result. Now, what does a good friend do? A good friend holds compassionate, sacred space. Now, let's tell you what I do. People come here day after day with their problems. I don't believe a word of it. That's the first thing. I know that's not the truth about them. I don't get involved. Oh, you poor thing. Oh, I don't go there. Doesn't mean I don't care for them. To love someone is to genuinely wish the well-being of the other. But I have great trust in the power of the Divine Mother, Shakti herself. I do my best to just hold sacred space. Now, if as a friend you've been empowered to make suggestions, I love something Susuli shared with me months ago. Unsolicited advice is a form of criticism. But if you've got that permission from the other person, can you not be do sangha, but sadhu sangha? Can you help them? Remind them. In AA, we talk about being in the solution, not the problem. I don't know if that's useful. Can you sense the subtle difference, Aditi?
Yeah.
But too often, we're looking for someone to commiserate with. And no doubt there's kind of a sick kind of satisfaction. I believe, oh, that person understands how miserable my life is. They have misery too. But what Narada is saying is that's do sangha. And you can tell by the result, do you go down and get more miserable with it? Does that ripple become an ocean? Now, I work with a whole lot of men in AA. This isn't Vedanta. But what I will frequently do is, well, what we need to do is pray. We need to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, the third step. Or if they come in, they did this to me, they did that to me, they did this to me, they did that to me, then I'll say, well, what's your part in it? You know? So what I endeavor to do is offer solutions rather than just commiserate with the misery. I hope that's useful.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No.
No?
For me.
Okay, next one.
Chapter 4, Section 1. Who crosses Maya? Means for love.
Okay, I think this is an important section that I want to save for next time. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. So before we end, does anybody have any comments, thoughts about this satsang, sadhu sangha versus du sangha? And of course, who is the person you have to watch out for the most, as good company or bad company? Myself. You got it. Become the company you seek. This doesn't mean to be phony and be Pollyanna. I always say, don't try to be spiritual, be authentic.
Perception is protection.
Say again.
Perception is protection.
Perception is projection. I like that. But one of the fundamental ideas in yoga, you won't be free from a negative, habituated thought pattern by endless repetition of it.
Or by praying it away.
Well, prayer helps. Prayer helps. But what prayer does is change the mind of the person praying. If your prayer is to remind yourself that you live in God's universe, that it's all going to be okay, that you're held in the hands of the divine, that God's in charge. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's different than saying, oh God, fix my daughter.
Yeah.
Oh God, give me what I want.
Your will, not mine.
Little louder.
Your will, not mine.
Yes, yes. Because you see what that does? That moves your mind out of the dusanga to the satsanga. So what yoga says, remember we talked about this vritti sanskara chakra, this wheel. The thought comes up, and if it's repeated, it digs the groove, sanskara, which then causes the thought to arise again, which digs the groove deeper, which causes the thought to arise again. The vritti sanskara chakra. How do I get out of it? According to Yoga Sutras, abhyas, vairagya. Practice turning the mind from the habituated thought, just what Narada was talking about, to God, to service. Vairagya, choose to let go. I'm not going to go down the road of the negativity. Doesn't mean to bury it. Doesn't mean to suppress it or drink at it or drug at it or take anxiety meds at it. You have to be conscious about what's coming up. But don't go down the rabbit hole of vritti. Any other thoughts?
Like I need help when I am there, like when the prayer is not working, I need to reach out.
Yeah, but you do, who do you reach out to? Someone who will remind you of the truth. Not someone who will say, oh, you're right. Your family's terrible. Your life sucks. Your job is awful. Not only that, the world is terrible. You might as well just shoot yourself or eat chocolate cake. See, that's dusanga. All right, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om. That's
Thank you, team. Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you all in Zoom land.
Thank you, Jim. Hari Om.
Hari Om.